Okay, welcome to this week's lab. Today we're going to talk about disk management. And before we get into that, let's make sure we go ahead and hit that like and that subscribe so that we can get credit for watching this video. Having said that, let's go ahead and jump into the lab. Now, unlike previous labs, I don't have my computer powered on because there's a couple things that you're going to need to do before we power on the virtual machine. First and foremost, we need to make a couple extra hard drives for our computer. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to edit our virtual machine settings. So we can just click on Edit Virtual Machine Settings, and we're going to add. Come down here to the bottom and click Add, and we're going to click on Hard Drive. Click Next. Leave the recommended NVMe. Click Next. We're going to create a new virtual disk. Click Next. And we want this virtual disk to be 1 GB in size. So just click on 1. And we're going to go ahead and store this as a single file. No need to have multiple files. Click Next. And we're going to name this hard drive 1. And we're actually going to store this in the proper location. So we'll go back into our F drive under CNT 201, and we want this in virtual drives. That's what that folder's for. So make sure you go into the right external drive, CNT 201, virtual drives, and then name it hard drive 1 and hit save. Click finish, and now we have our hard drive 1 connected. We're going to do this 4 more times, and for each one of these hard drives, we're going to make them 1 extra gigabyte larger. So we'll click on add another hard drive, click next, create a new virtual disk, change this one to 2 GB, store as a single file, click next. We're going to browse where this is located, make sure it's in this right folder. I'm just going to click on hard drive 1 so that I have it named the same, and I'm just going to click it hard drive 2. Click save, make sure everything looks right, and click finish. We have our 1 GB, our 2 GB, and we're going to keep going until we have all the way up to a 5 GB folder or hard drive. Let's create a new one. Change this one to 3 GB, store it as a single file. Browse our location. Our location's good. Hard drive 3, save, finish. 2 more. Add, next, 4 GB, store it as a single file. Next, browse, hard drive 4. Finish, and 1 more. Add, next, 5 GB, stored as a single file. Browse. Notice I keep clicking browse and I actually don't have to. I do it just because I want to make sure that it's in the right spot. Even though it is, I like to be safe. Okay, so now we have our 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 new hard drives. So now we're going to go ahead and we are going to hit OK, and we're going to power on this virtual machine. Okay, we can go ahead and log in. CNT password. And if we click on our File Explorer, notice that when we click on this PC, nothing special here. We only see our 1 hard drive, our local C, nothing fancy. what we actually have to do is we have to go into disk management. So to get to disk management, you can do it a couple different ways. We'll just do it the way that it says in the lab. We're going to click on our search button, and we're going to just go to computer management. Click on the app. And inside computer management, under storage, you'll see disk management. Click on that. And you should see a window pop up that asks you if you'd like to initialize the disks. You can say cancel on this, or you can say initialize. Either way, we're gonna get to the point that we need to initialize these disks anyways. So go ahead and just say okay. No point in saying cancel. Every disk, in order for it to work, has to be initialized. That's just how life goes. So now that we have these disks initialized, we can come in here and we can start doing a couple things to our system. First thing we want to do is take a look at our system as it has. You may see that you have a DVD-ROM in here. I don't have one, so I'm going to skip past the part where it asks me about the DVD-ROM. But if you do have a DVD-ROM, you should change the DVD-ROM drive letter as it says in the lab so that you can change it. No big deal. And then you should see all of your different, let me see if I can maximize this a little bit. You should see all of your different drives that you've created. Disk 0, that's the one that has your current operating system on it. Notice it has some unallocated space. And then we have our 1 GB, 2 GB, 3 GB, 4 GB, and 5 GB disks all listed in there. So we're going to go ahead and start doing some configuration to these different disks. Note that we already initialized. If we go through the lab, it actually told us to cancel, and then it tells us to initialize it again. So no big deal, whatever. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to our disk 5. We're going to start with disk 5. And we're going to set this up as a new simple volume. So we click on disk 5. We right click in the unallocated space and we say new simple volume. Click next. And this says that we want to create a 1024, so 1 GB volume. And we're going to click next. And we want this one to have the drive letter of D, which isn't actually listed in here. So we'll just say E. We'll leave it at E. That's fine. The file allocation table for this, when we click next, we want this to be a FAT32 file allocation table. And we can leave the default allocated unit size, and we're going to label this data. I'm going to go ahead and let it perform a quick format, click next, and finish. And you can see now that we have our E drive. So now you can see that you have 4 gigs of unallocated space with 1 gig available for data. Now it wants us to create a second simple volume on the same disk. So we click on our unallocated space, click on new simple volume, and it wants this one to be a 1024 as well. Click next. This one, again, it says E. We're just going up a letter. It's not a big deal what the drive letter number or letter is. This one's supposed to be FAT32 as well. And this one is going to be called archive. Click next and finish. And now we have our E. It wants us to do another simple volume. Again, it wants 1024. We'll call this one G. This one is going to be NTFS. And we're going to name this one pictures. Click Next and Finish. Wants us to create a fourth simple volume. Click Next, 1024. Click Next. We'll assign this one H, since we can't assign the one that it wanted to. This one is going to be NTFS again, and we're going to call this one Extra. Click Next and Finish. So now we have a D drive, an E drive, an F drive, a G drive, an H drive, and free space of 1021. So now we can actually, if we wanted to, hang on one second. We can open up our File Explorer and we can click on this PC, and you'll see that we have all of these different drives available. Note real quick that the Pictures G and Extra H have a little bit of used space, 1 megabyte for each one of those. Whereas E and F, they do not have any used space. They both have 0.99 gigabytes free of 99 gigabytes, as opposed to the 0.98 of 0.99. This is because D and E are both FAT32 formatted, whereas G and H are both NTFS formatted. So the NTFS format actually requires the utilization of that 1 megabyte for formatting functionality, specifically for things like encryption and permissions. So now that we've done that and we've looked at the size of everything, we can actually go through and we can delete each one of these extended partitions. We can delete the volume. Yes. Delete the volume. Of course, we're doing this after we've taken a screenshot so that you can put it into your there we go. Everything is back to unallocated. So now we're going to take a look at disk 1. So we're going to scroll back up here to disk 1. We're going to right click on this, create a simple volume. We'll leave it to the 1021 that it has. We're going to give this one a drive letter of G. Leave it at NTFS. And we're going to name this one volume 1. Click Finish. Now we can come into our folder and we can open up G and we can actually create just a dummy file, nothing fancy, just new text file. We'll call it dummy. Why not? We can even open it up if we want and type in a bunch of characters, nothing fancy. File, save. Okay. So now, if we go into our disk management and we right click on this, right click on the disk area, the gray area, we can convert this to a dynamic disk just disk 1. Click convert, and it lets us know that we'll be converting the disk, no big deal. And now you can see that we've changed it from basic disk, as we see here, to a dynamic disk. If we go back into the File Explorer, open up volume G, our file's still there. Cool, no big deal. However, let's go ahead and convert disk 2, close out of this, convert this disk to a dynamic disk, and then we're going to create a new simple volume. Click Next. This one's 1024. Next. We'll give this one an H. Next. Leave it as NTFS. We'll call this one volume 2. Click Finish. And then we're going to create an extended volume. Oops. So we're going to right click on volume 2, and we're going to extend the volume. Click Next. We'll extend it to disk 2, but we'll change this to 512. Click Next and Finish. And you can see now it's 1.5 gigabytes. We can right click on it again, and we can shrink the volume. And we want to shrink it back down 512. Click Shrink, and again, it's back down to 1 gigabyte. So now we'll create another simple volume. We'll make this one 512 megabytes. Click Next. This one can be whatever we want it to be, realistically. We'll just give it I. Click Next. And we'll call this one volume 3. Click Next and Finish. Now we have ourselves 2 volumes on disk 2. So can we extend volume 2 again? Yes, we can. We're not going to, but we can. If we then come into our File Explorer again, and we open up this PC, we can see volumes H and I, as we did before. We can actually mount these folders by opening our volume 1, and inside of them, we can create 2 folders. New folder, volume 3, and volume 4. And then we'll come back into disk management, and we'll create these simple volumes. Click on Next with the size that we have, and we're going to mount this into Browse our G drive under volume 3. Click Next. Volume 3. Click Next and Finish. And now we have volume 3 there. We can delete this volume. And we will create another simple volume. mount this one into volume 4. Click next, finish. So now we've created multiple volumes inside of disk 2, but we've mounted them into these folders that we created on volume 1. Now we can go ahead and delete the dynamic disk, close out of this. We can just click on each one of these volumes and delete those. And we can convert it back to, oh, sorry. Delete this one as well. And that converts back to a basic disk for us already. Okay, so let's create a couple different types of disks. First, we're going to take a look at all of the volumes, make sure everything's deleted off of disks 1 through 4. And don't worry about anything on disk 0 or 5. Just make sure 1 through 4 are clean. Once we've done that, we're going to go into disk management and we're going to create a new spanned volume. So we're going to right click on disk 1 and click on new spanned volume. Click next. And we're going to make sure that we add all of our disks. Sorry. We're going to use 512 megabytes. Oops. 512 megabytes of disk 1. And then we're going to add disk 2. And we're going to click next. We can leave it as volume E, that's fine. Click next. And we'll call this one span. And click next and finish. And note that now we have in purple our spanned volume that covers both disk 1, or at least half of disk 1, and disk 2. Let's try creating a striped volume. We're going to click on disk 3, and we're going to right click on it and click on new striped volume. Click next. And we're going to change the size of disk 3 to 1024. And then we're going to click on disk 4 and add it. And we're going to click on disk 5 and add it. Notice that it automatically changes the amount of space that we're using on disk 3 and 4 and 5 to 1024 because of what we started the first one as. With striped volumes, everything has to be the same size. So we click next, we'll leave it as F, click next, and we'll call this one striped. Quick format, and click next and finish. And now you should see here shortly that we have in light blue our striped volume. We can also create a mirror volume. If we right click on disk 1, we can click new mirror volume, click next, and we can add disk 3, again keeping the same size, click next. We can leave it as G and we'll call this one mirror. Click next and finish. And now you have in red our mirror version. Now if we open up our File Explorer and go to this PC, you can see that we only have the 3 span, striped, and mirrored drives available, even though if you look at disk management, it looks like there's quite a bit more. So for the rest of the lab, you're going to do some tests on fault tolerance. The lab is very straightforward in telling you how to do that. So please do everything you can there for the fault tolerance and creating the RAID 5 array. And if you run into any issues, feel free to ask. Hope you enjoyed the lab. Have a great day.